Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School. Alan Dershowitz joins me. Good evening, sir. And from the outset, I don't like anonymous sources. I will say that. I like people beyond the record. But taking a look at this investigation has been going on for 4 years, and it doesn't seem particularly sophisticated or complicated to me. Either he didn't pay his taxes, or he falsely prepared the form, or he didn't. Your thoughts about this?
I do think it's a matter of degree. Taxes are always contain elements of subjectivity, reporting overseas income. Was he addicted to narcotics? Did he use narcotics? There are defenses to this. I'll tell you the man who should be most interested in assuring that Biden does not get prosecuted. And it's not Joe Biden, it's Donald Trump. Let me explain why. It's counterintuitive. Unless they indict Biden Jr., they will not credibly be able to indict Trump. But if they indict Biden Jr., Garland will be able to say, look how fair we are. We didn't go after Trump. We indicted the son of the president, and we indicted the man who's going to be running against the president. Fair is fair. And that's why, politics inevitably plays a role in this. Because in all of these cases, there's an element of subjectivity. Take, for example, the gun purchase. I'm told that rarely do they prosecute people for lying on forms about guns. They probably should, but they don't. And if this is selective prosecution, that raises both a legal and a political question.
All right, I did a little research on that question. In the DOJ in the year 2018 received...
I'm not hearing you.
The DOJ... I'm sorry they can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. All right. I did a little research on this, and the Department of Justice in the year 2018, when this investigation began, received referrals for lying on gun forms. They received 478, and they charged 298 of those for a 60% charging rate for people who lied or accused of lying on forms.
What did they charge him with, though? Do they charge him with misdemeanors or felonies? And did they accept pleas with no jail time? You have to look at the totality of the circumstances, and there is discretion. And, Weiss has generally a pretty good reputation as being fair. And, of course, he's a Trump appointee, and Biden didn't want to get rid of Weiss. I'm sure he wanted to, but he couldn't get rid of Weiss because it would be seen as favoring his son. Look, I hate the fact that we just weaponize the criminal justice system on both sides. And I think we're seeing this as an example. I think the defense attorney was right when he said the only reason they are going after this guy is because of his last name. I don't think they would generally do that. On the other hand, if the facts make out a clear case of criminal violation, then they, obviously have to go for it.
But there's the issue of prosecutorial discretion, even if there's a clear case. I mean, not every case is prosecuted. If you were the prosecutor, what are the factors you would look at in making the determination? I'm not even going to ask you whether you prosecute him or not, because we don't have all the facts. But what does a prosecutor look at?
Willfulness. Did he make the to be or not to be decision from Hamlet? To be or not to be a felon? Do I deliberately lie to get a gun license knowing full well that I'm using drugs, or is it just slippage? The same thing with income taxes. There are a lot of bad income tax returns filed, but never prosecution because blame it on the accountant, blame it. In order to get a prosecution here, you have to show willfulness to a high level of certainty. You have to show that this man set out to commit crime, not that it was negligent, not that it was careless, not even that it was reckless. And I just don't know if the evidence comes up to that standard.
I would take into consideration that he's a lawyer. I mean, I think that that would be a factor to me, whether he knew or didn't know. I'd also take into account, if I were making the decision, if there's a tax error, is it an error that's a significant one, or is it $5? Because I would look at sort of the practical standpoint of do we want to spend resources on it? I would try to do everything I could to strip away the political ramifications of it, because I think that's deadly to the criminal justice system.
No, I agree completely. Now, is he a lawyer? Is he a real lawyer? Or is he somebody who just went to law school and passed the bar and really can't be held to the standards that you and I would be held to? being real lawyers with real experience. But I agree with you.
But we outsource. But a lot of this, because we know the risk with tax stuff, I assume you do, is I outsource my tax stuff to experts. I don't dare get near it.
I have the same thing, and that's what his defense is going to be as well, and that's what Donald Trump's defense is going to be as well. So look, even though every case should be considered separately, when you have the son of the current president under investigation and the potential future candidate for president against the incumbent under investigation, there is no way that some degree of politics, some degree of balance won't be used by the Justice Department. Now, in this case, if Garland has said, look, Weiss is making the final decision, then there's no balance because Weiss isn't investigating Trump. But it will ultimately come to Garland's desk, and the buck stops there, and he has to make a very, very difficult decision. But I don't think we're going to see one of them prosecuted and the other not. I think if one gets prosecuted, it raises the likelihood that the other will be prosecuted.
Well, I don't like the long delay in the investigation. I think this should have been done years ago, one way or the other. And I also don't like anonymous sources. I'm waiting for the official word on this one.
I don't like leaks of grand jury material. I think there ought to be an investigation of how the Post and the Times got this story. Did they get it from an FBI agent who feloniously disclosed grand jury material? That's a serious crime.
Professor Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the truth. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
Real news
for real people.